It was business as usual at Bilafonla on the 13th of April 1984. Fresh snow had covered the snow from yesterday. Heavy gusty winds were nothing new to the place. The entire region looked pristine white. It was around 5:30 in the morning when two cheetah helicopters from the 114 helicopter unit of the Indian Air Force appeared on the horizon. Fresh snow had made landing of the helicopters impossible. As Captain Sanjay Kulkarni, leading the four Kumaunis in the lead helicopter, stood up to jump, the helicopters were very unstable. But this jump was about to go down in the history of, of the Indian Army as a story of unparalleled bravery. This is the story of Operation Meghdoot, the capture of Siachen. Captain Sanjay Kulkarni retired as Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni and DG of Infantry of the Indian Army. And we are honored to have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni with us today on Samvad to narrate the story of Operation Meghdoot. Thank you, sir, and welcome to Samvad.
Thank you, Manji. Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Sir, sir, these incidences, the operation, something of the magnitude of Operation Meghdoot, they don't happen in isolation. So before we proceed further as to what happened when you jumped from the cheetah helicopter, it would be apt if you go down in history a bit, some time back, sir, when I believe there was the freak discovery of a map, which finally culminated in Operation Meghdoot. So I would like you to tell us as to how it all started.
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, even before I start, I must at the outset be honest to you. It's not me, because it is definitely not me. Because not for any reason, these kind of operations can't be executed without tremendous logistic backup. The way the seniors would take you and guide you, your comrades in arms, ensuring that it's a great success. And of course, the great Jawans, the Bahadur Jawans, they are the ones who finally make it possible to succeed. So it is not my story. So let's not, at any point of time, we mustn't, be feeling, or neither should I feel, well, sit in front of Mayank and, telling stories about what great things I did. I did nothing. So that's the first and
For me,
foremost thing.
Captain Sanjay, when I say Captain Sanjay Kulkarni, sir, it means the entire Indian Army. Captain Sanjay Kulkarni just represents the army.
Absolutely. You just said it. I happen to be a representative, just a representative of my great army.
Sir.
Having said that, definitely we were all as a team, and I had seen the glacier in 1982. I had flown over it. I was aware of the word Siachen Glacier in 1978 when had gone there for a course at Gulmarg at the High Altitude Warfare School. Whose commandant was Colonel Kumar, who was called Bull Kumar. So I knew, okay, I'd heard someone talking, some course wanting to go to Siachen Glacier, but one didn't know. I was a youngster, just commissioned a year before, and I was at the High Altitude Warfare School, and I heard people say. And all of us then decided to go. In those days, there used to be 3 tons, the trucks used to be called 3-ton trucks. So we would all be sit, and then we all sat and then went to Ladakh. And while at Ladakh, since we were doing the basic course, we were told that we would climb the highest peak in Leh called the Stok Kangri. And the seniors who were part of the advanced course, well, we didn't know where they had gone, but then we got to know later they went towards Siachen Glacier. So that is the first time that I heard something like Siachen Glacier. That was in 78. Then I'm told that Colonel Bul Kumar carried on with his missions. He was determined. And as you rightly said, some maps that he happened to have, he had gone in a rafting expedition with 2 Germans. And those 2 Germans again approached him for yet another rafting expedition. This time they wanted to go down Shok River. So he wasn't very sure about it. And while he was talking to them, at that point of time, he saw a map, and that particular map did sort of, prompted him to ask them as to where do they get and what is it like, what they intend doing. So they, in their casual conversations to Colonel Bulkumar, said that they were wanting to go on to Siachen Glacier subsequently, and that the Pakis had sponsored the expedition and that we're doing so. So this is what alarmed Colonel Bulkumar as to how is it that this particular area, which otherwise belongs to us, and the two Germans with whom he had once gone rafting along the river, and now seem to be telling him that they are planning to go to Siachen. And while on the map, he felt that the area that he saw definitely wasn't belonging to Pakistan and that it was India. So he alarmed the army headquarters to say that, well, this is what has happened, and that he sought permission that he be allowed Siachen Glacier as part of the long-range patrolling to be able to explore that area, because that entire area, the Karakorams, as they refer to as mountainous paradise, over almost a dozen peaks, over 7,000 meters, lovely area, the world's second longest glacier, Saltoro, and the Siachen Glacier, the ridgeline, the Karakoram ranges. You had lovely, the world's second highest peak that you could see, K2, the 76-kilometer long, 2 to 5 kilometers wide. Something was when I also flew over it for the first time in 1982. I was also quite. I said, "What a place! Absolutely beautiful, like you described, pristine, absolutely white, lovely peaks, fantastic. This thing, not no human habitation whatsoever. I couldn't even spot a grass at that point of time. Of course, later on, where we still call it the Kumar's, logistic camp or Kumar's base camp. That's where you find a little bit of green grass over a small patch where you do find sometimes the ibexes do come to, graze in that particular area. So that was my first this thing. And as Siachen, as most people would call, it's called rose, the wild rose. And you do see those wild roses at the snout of the glacier. And from the snout, that is from Sasoma, you go down to snout. And the snout, the glacier starts going from about 11,000 and then culminates at a place called Indira Kol, which is about 76 kilometers from the snout. And then it touches almost about between 20,000 and 21,000 feet. And right onto the eastern side of the Indira Kol. And when you stand on top of Indira Kol, you can see the Shakskam Valley. Now, that is the Shakskam Valley, is the valley which has been gifted by Pakistan to China. It's about 5,700 odd square kilometers, gifted by Pakistan to China to settle its boundary dispute with Pakistan. And they gifted it in 1963 with a rider that as and when the whole border issue would be settled between the three countries, India, Pakistan, and China, though finally the decision would be taken. Notwithstanding that, that got gifted to them. And from there, and over to the western edge of the Shakskam Valley is the Khunjera Pass. And from that Khunjera Pass comes then the Karakura Highway, and now what is popularly called the CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, which comes from Kashgar, that is the Xinjiang province, from the Khunjera Pass, goes along Gilgit-Baltistan and goes right and finally culminates at a place called Gwadar, opens out in the Arabian Sea, and then subsequent to the Indian Ocean. So that is where the place, and then the Saltoro ridgeline. But even before we attempted, there were lots of it that came to the notice of the Indian Army and also of the government that Pakistan was sponsoring. Pakistan attempted to grab, I would say, this area, what they would term it as the cartographic aggression. Now, the cartographic aggression meant that sometime around 1949, when the Karachi Agreement was made, it was very clear in that agreement that the ceasefire line continued up to a point called NJ 9842. And since the area beyond it was extremely difficult to negotiate, very difficult to be able to go at that point of time, demarcate or delineate the boundary. So it was stated that it will, at NJ 9842, thence north on to the glaciers. And then north to the glaciers meant, as it is in the mountain, along the Soltoro ridge line. And then if you saw the north of it, it actually moves towards the direction of the K2, the world's second highest peak, K2. Because when you stand at Indrakol, you can see the second highest peak, very distinct peak, that is the K2. But what the they join point NJ9842 to Karakoram Pass. Now, moment you join it to Karakoram Pass, so between the Karakoram Pass and the K2 towards the north and the Karakoram Pass to the east, that entire area adjoining the Shaksam Valley, which comprises of the Siachen glacier, according to Pakistan, they started claiming it, saying that it is there, and as a result of it, they started sponsoring foreign expeditions towards in that area to have a legitimacy that this area belongs to them. So that is how is the history behind how it came to light, how Pakistanis to the cartographic aggression. But what is important over here, Mayank, is that the point NJ9842 got connected to the Karakoram Pass inadvertently, I may put it, or advertently, I don't know, but I would still give the benefit of doubt, inadvertently to the Americans. Pakistan was part of the SEATO and CENTO. And as part of it, for the flyers, when you are flying, it's very difficult for the pilot to be able to identify because of the frequency changes and all. They call the ADIZ, that for their air defense identification zone. So to be able to make the pilot know that he's now crossing from one country to the other country, so they on their own decided that they would join NJ9842 to Karakoram Pass, making the pilots when they are flying know that now they're entering yet another country for frequency change, whatever that the pilots are supposed to be doing. But this, the Pakis took it as having become a like a Lakshman Rekha. Okay, from NJ9842, it will go the then ceasefire line extends to the Karakoram Pass. And even in 1971 war, again, if you see, there's a famous person, Colonel Rinchin. Now, Colonel Rinchin is a very famous, a very popular man who has, as a youngster, while in 47, 48 operations, got a Mahavir Chakra. And again, he got yet again decorated subsequent war, another Mahavir Chakra. And yet in another war, he was decorated with a Sera Medal. So a very fine checkered career, who retired as a colonel. Now, his village is somewhere close to the glacier area. So he fought in 71. He was responsible to have captured the area called Turtuk. Now, this Turtuk is something which extended the ceasefire line from then a place called Bogdang towards Turtuk. Now, Turtuk is part of Baltistan. Now, since Turtuk is part of Baltistan, and we all are aware of the Gilgit-Baltistan area that is there, through which how the Chinese are now constructing this China-Pakistan economic corridor, and all of it being mineral rich, and the way they're utilizing water, that for construction of dams and generating electricity and wanting to connect themselves to Gada. So this particular area got extended from Bogdan to Chalunka to a place called Turtuk. Now, Turtuk is en route to a place called Skardu. Now, Skardu, Pakistanis have an international airport. And this CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor Highway, which is running through, Skardu is connected. So Skardu is connected to that particular highway. And this particular area is approximately about, you can say, about max is 75 kilometers from a place called Turtuk. So that is the closeness of this area is concerned. Now, this got captured in 71. But despite that, of course, the ceasefire line of the Karachi agreement got subsequently amended because of that. It was earlier core, so the whole thing got extended because we had captured Turtuk, we had captured Chalunka, all of it area had been captured. But ultimately, that NJ9842 remained where it was. And thence northward to the glacier also remained where it was. Whereas Pakistan tried to play along, the words like, no, it was this, it was that, absolutely fully well knowing what it is. So to avoid a kind of a fait accompli, which like what we saw, what happened in 62, if you're not there, the Chinese captured the Aksai Chin. So the general feeling at that point of time was that it should not happen as a fait accompli that Pakistan goes around and occupies this area, and then we are left with high and dry, an area which legitimately belongs to us. It was in that context that Operation Meghdoot finally got launched on the 13th of April 1984. Yeah.
So this, when you read about it, sir, you have experienced it. People like us can only read about it. It looks like a very, very tough operation, sir. The heights, the altitude. I mean, how was the training like, sir? I would like you to tell us about the training in brief, the equipments. Did you have the equipments to work on those heights, the clothes? How did that work out?
It's very interesting because, as I said, 78, I first got exposed. 82 was flown because 82, the Ladakh scouts were on an LRP. They call it the long range patrolling. And 82. In 81, Colonel N. Kumar, before he retired, he said, I would rather, true to his image, true to his personality, a mountaineer of repute who had climbed so many peaks, including Kanchenjunga, Mount Everest, and what have you. So he was a mountaineer. So he wanted to retire, having climbed and having gone down the peaks of Siachen Glacier. So he climbed Saltoro, Kangri, Teremshe, 1, 2 peaks, and all that. So, and of course, the Indian Army also felt that a person who was so passionate with mountaineering had done so much, was almost like a savior of the Siachen Glacier who brought it to the notice of the Army headquarters. They allowed him that, yes, he could well retire in 81 by going up, and so he did that. So, having done that in 81, I must mention it over here. While he was doing that not expedition, the long range patrolling in 81, the Pakistanis did intercept, and they intercepted his long range patrol with a fighter aircraft, and they flew over him. And to the helicopter, they did warn them that you better pull back. This is our area. So the first interest that the Pakistanis tried to show that it is their area was, I would say, militarily, was sometime around 1981. However, those days, invariably, we would go around doing long-range patrolling in the month of June, July, because before that, it's very, very difficult. It's very cold. The temperatures are almost minus 50, minus 60 degrees. The winds are blowing over 120, 150 kilometers per hour. It's very difficult to eat. It's very difficult to sleep. It's very difficult to eat. It's extremely difficult because either you could suffer from insomnia, or you could even lose your basic senses and suffer from various other diseases. You won't be able to drink, eat, see, heavy snowfall, wind, all those kind of things. So it invariably we went around in the month of June, July, hoping it to be a decent time, and pull back by the month of October. So we are there about 90 odd days because the rest of the time it was impossible. So that happened in 81. 82, the Ladakh scouts went there, and it was called the Ibex Hunt. Now, as part of the Ibex Hunt, they did it, and I went and the logistics sorties, since I happened to be there in Turtuk and Patapo. I'm from Fokumau, and Fokumau was to be inducted, so I was part of the advance party. So I saw all of it over there. And then in 83, Fort Kumau, since it was there, I was told that, you will be taking a platoon to as part of the long range patrol, and it was termed as Polar Bear 1. Now, Polar Bear 1 was the name given to the long range patrol because the person who had led in the Ibex hunt, Major Thapa, he he sprained his leg, so he couldn't take the Polar Bear 1. So since I was number 2 of the patrol party, they told me, look, since the patrol leader has twisted his ankle, we suggest you take on this responsibility. Now, as part of the training, it wasn't easy because, however much you may do, Khardungla, the path that you, from Leh, when you're getting into Patapo, it's about 18,380 feet. The pass, the Khardungla pass. They call it Khardungla. La means a pass. And when you say Kangri, Kangri means a snow-covered peak. So when I say Soltoro Kangri, Sia Kangri, means a peak which is perpetually covered with snow to 365 days. And when I say Bilopon La, Sia La, Kardung La, La means a pass. So that is where how people identified over there. So in 82, the Ladakhis had gone. In 83, well, I got a chance to lead the patrol. So as part of the patrol, we went there for 90 days. So I had gone down to Belafondla. So the various camps are established: Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, and then go down to Belafondla and things. Because every camp is a 1 day turnover. That means you go up to Camp 1 and you can fall back again to the base camp. Similarly, Camp 2, base camp. Camp 3, Camp 2, Camp 1, base camp, like that. So it takes a lot of time, about a week, the 3 to 4 days, before you get on to Belafondla. So in one of my trips to Belafondla, we found some wrappers. And those wrappers, when we found them on top, obviously we didn't know what the writing on the wrappers was, because at that point of time, as a young captain, it's very difficult to identify whether the writing was Japanese or Chinese, because both scripts look quite identical. So it's very difficult to find out what it is. At least that for me, now of course I can find out that this is a Japanese script and this is a Chinese script. So that is but that time. So obviously we picked up the wrappers, we brought it back and then reported to say that some wrappers have been found. That means somebody has attempted to come from Belafondla, and we don't know who it has, but someone has attempted to come from that side. So General Rawat, the later whose son became the CDS, Bipin Rawat, his father, he was a major general those days. So he flew in to find out what happened. So we told him this is exactly what happened, and we found some wrappers. So he took those wrappers, he went, and the next day he said, okay, good, these aren't Chinese wrappers. These are some Japanese expedition, probably sponsored by Pakistan, attempted to do. But, well, maybe while they halted at Belafondla, they must have had some soda or wrappers or water or something like that to, hydrate themselves, and that is what it is. And she forgot. So that was in 1983. Having got to have this, when we de-inducted, I used the word Polar Bear 1. Polar Bear 2 was launched a little later, sometime in October. Once Polar Bear 1 de-inducted, the Pakistanis attempted to induct onto the glacier. And when the Pakistanis were inducting, we were also inducting again. So we call it the Polar Bear 2. So Pakistanis, of course, were not onto the Siachen glacier, but they were on the Saltoro ridgeline. And when we de-inducted as part of Polar Bear 2, they inducted as part of the mission sometime in around, I think, October, November. And they found it extremely, extremely difficult to survive. And there were the elite troops called the SSG. And this SSG found it very difficult, and almost they were about to die. When their corps commander, General Dahat Khan over there, was responsible for them, he pulled them back. And he said, look, you chaps are not able to survive over there, come back. We'll attempt to do it the following year. That means in 1984, they were to climb on top of the glacier. And we didn't know all this. Now, part of this gets revealed by General Musharraf when he writes in his book, In the Line of Fire, as to he was posted there as a lieutenant colonel and a colonel in the military operations branch of Pakistan. So while he was there in 83, 84, posted in the military operations branch, he knew what was going on and happening. And he later commanded the SSG. And when he commanded the SSG, he took it on himself to lead, to dislodge the Indian army from the Saltoro ridgeline. And that, which led to various attacks subsequently after 84, where Pakistanis kept on attacking one after the other, failed in all their attacks, and even they surreptitiously captured, I would say, captured, but they moved quietly onto a place called Bana, what we call it Bana Post now. They called it the Kaid Post, a peak which overlooks Belafondla, was occupied by them sometime around 1987. And that lost the Indian army, and in turn, they lost that Kaid Post by Bana, whose team of 8 Jackalions, part of Operation Rajiv, they captured that particular height. And now, because he got the Paramveer Chakra and for the deeds and the valor that he showed for capturing of that particular height, it is called the Bana Post. Otherwise, they had called the Qaid post after Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Qaid-e-Azam. So they named it as the Qaid post, the highest feature in
Sir,
that particular area.
sir,
Yeah.
as an audience, as somebody who's watching, sir, I'm too excited, sir, about the D-Day, sir. Sir, I cannot wait for that portion to come. You stood up on the helicopter. I told that story before. You stood up on the helicopter about to jump, sir. Now take us forward as to what happened.
Okay. So now let's go back to the 11th of April 1984. So since 11th of April 1984, it was a clear day, absolutely clear day. And since none of us had moved into the glacier, we didn't want to let anybody know, especially the Pakistanis know that we were interested in that part, because they knew Indians will come, but they knew the Indians will come sometime around June, July, that would be the time. But well, we had planned it on the 13th of April because the commander at that point of time, Brigadier Channa, had stated that it is an auspicious day, Baisakhi. And Baisakhi is auspicious. And since it is an auspicious day, even in Pakistan, they celebrate Baisakhi. We will go and capture Belafondla, rather the Siachen glacier, that is Belafondla, and Siala, the two routes of ingress, two prominent routes of ingress into Siachen were Belafondla and Siala, will be captured on the 13th of April. So 11th of April, we did the recce. 12th, we did nothing whatsoever. Now, till 12th of April 1984, the foreign equipment which we were supposed to be equipped with for occupation or for moving on to the glacier on the 13th of April hadn't arrived on the 10th, hadn't arrived on the 11th, had finally arrived almost around 5, I think around 5 in the evening on the 12th of April 1984, and we were supposed to launch the operation on the 13th of April 1984, like what you said in your initial introduction, at about 5:30 in the morning. So the equipment hadn't come. What the Pakistanis had done, because they wanted to preempt us, which again Musharraf writes in his book, that India preempted Pakistan, and Pakistan is in its zeal to attempt to preempt India. What they did was they bought the entire snow equipment from the European world, entire of it. And by December, they had already bought it. So when India went to buy it, General Hoon had been detailed to buy the for equipment from Europe. He was told all of it has been bought and purchased by Pakistanis. Oh God, he said, if that be so, now we have to order. So the placement of order and all of it started then, and it arrived at the base camp on the 12th of April 1984, and we were to launch our operations on the 13th of April 1984. The Pakistanis at this point of time, before I just put more, they were to launch their operations by General Zahid Khan. He said, well, 1st April 1984 is the date that he wanted to launch the operation. And seeing that the Pakistani troops couldn't withstand the cold temperatures and they were about to die in 1983, he said that 1st of April would be too early for them to launch. Let us postpone their operation to the 30th of April. So the Pakistanis were to launch their operation on the 30th of April, and we had decided to launch our operations on the 13th of April, not knowing what the Pakistanis were doing. It was our own plan that it would be done on the 13th. So on the 13th of April, 12th, this equipment came. We tried it out in the evening. By then it was quite dark. However, we flew in. There were about 8 or 9 helicopters. Those days, the helicopters were only they were all under the Air Force. There was no helicopters with the Army. The pilots were there from the Army, but the helicopters, maintenance, and its custody was with the Air Force. So the Air Force brought their 8, 9 helicopters, all of us to be taken and to be dropped. We were to go 30 people to be landing in Belafondla and 30 were to land at Siala. So in phase 1, this, each of these helicopters, cheetah helicopters, 2, but the helicopter could only take 4 people, pilot, the co-pilot, and 2 passengers. So that is how we were decided that it would require 15 sorties for the platoon to be dropped at Belafondla. And similarly, once they finish off with their sorties by about 11 o'clock in the morning, then the subsequent time would be given for dropping of the other platoon which will get dropped at Siala. So that was the plot. And with that in mind, 11th of April, a clear day. 12th of April, a clear day. 13th of April morning, absolutely a clear day. We decided to go. And they were flown. I was with my radio operator. His name was Mandal from the signals. We were all trained together. We were at training for last about 3 months prior to that for high altitude training to ensure that we knew how to use the ropes. We knew how to rope up and go. We knew how to make, bases. We knew what rappelling is all about. We knew what mountaineering, mountain climbing involved. We knew how to wear crampons, how to walk on the glaciers, how to use the ice axes. So we were all good mountaineers by all standards to be able to climb anything. So well trained, able to withstand. Well, from our side, everything. So starts off. We were taken off. So I sat in the first helicopter with them, and two more, Ramesh and his friend, sat in the second helicopter. And to begin with, these two helicopters were flown onto Belafondla. So as soon as we reached Belafondla, the pilots told me, "Look, Kulkarni, we can't land." So I said, "You can't land? What happened?" He says, "No, we haven't landed over here. And what happens is when the helicopter comes down to land, it has a whiteout condition. It cannot see anything because the loose snow gets thrown up because of the thrust of the helicopter when it is landing. The snow gets thrown up. Now, if the snow gets thrown up, the entire area is crevasse prone. Crevasse means they're deep ravines, very deep, which have covered with thin ice. So when you're flying from the top, you will feel it's totally very nicely, beautifully covered and a thin ice layer. But if you land a helicopter-like thing, when it lands, it'll probably just go down and sink. So the pilot said, "Look, I can't take that chance, and I suggest you jump." I said, "I don't mind jumping, but before I jump, I should so jump that I also only go into the crevice, and then instead of occupying the Siachen glacier, yet another operation will start trying to pull me out of that crevice, and it will lead to something else." We were told 5 days of radio silence. The radio sets will not open, because if the radio sets open, Pakistan will home on, and Pakistan will come to know that these people are doing something on top of the glacier. So we were self-contained 5 days with radio silence. So we said nothing doing. So I told the pilot, I said, "No problem, I'll jump." But before I jumped, yeah, I had a small Ateka bori, which had about 10 kgs of atta, which was right under my seat only. So I said, "Okay," because the entire load for 5 days for 30 of us, we were self-contained. So we were carrying, each helicopter had been given a load. You will carry this 10, you will carry this, you will carry this. So fortunately, there was an Ateka bori of 10 kg right under my seat. So I told the pilot, I said, "Look, what I can do is I'll drop this particular bag from the height, and if it doesn't sink, and if it stays on the top, that means that it's quite hard. Because if that doesn't sink, my jumping also, I won't sink, so it's perfectly fine." He said, "That suits, no problem." So he just hovered and threw that bag down. And when the bag was thrown, I saw the bag. It was on top of the glacier. I gave him a thumbs up. I said, "I'm ready to jump." So he came slow and he said, "Jump." I jumped down. Then I jumped from the helicopter. I gave him a thumbs up. I said, "I'm perfectly fine." He was watching me, obviously, from the top as to what's going on down below. So I gave him a thumbs up. He said, "No problem." The other helicopter saw all that was going on over there. And the moment I gave my thumbs up, the second helicopter, which was hovering to see what we were doing, came and landed. Rather than the one that from which I jumped, it took off again from because it was hovering. So it just took off, and the second one came and landed. Then the one with the radio operator came and landed. And that is how the first four of us that we were now, two of them, obviously, when the helicopter landed, got down. The one who was sitting with me also, because he was with the radio set, he also then landed. But the one who was with the radio set, within about half an hour, he said, "I'm able to," while I was telling about Mandal, it was very interesting. The signal operator had been training with us for such a long time, and I never expected that as soon as he would land, within about half an hour, he would suffer from what they call it as a high altitude pulmonary edema. He said, "Saab, मेरे को बिल्कुल सांस लेने में मुश्किल हो रहा है." I said, "My God, we've just about landed. It's not even half an hour, and what to do next now?" And I said, "Anyway, it doesn't matter." I said, "You keep sitting at one place. The next sortie that comes, I'll send you back." And sure enough, I sent him back. So within no time, from 30, we had already become 29 because we were to be 30 on top of Bella, one had been evacuated. So the start was like that. And again, by the time the last sortie came with Major R.S. Sandhu, who was the company commander, under whom the 30 of us were to be operating at Bella. And we had two more platoons. One was to be a backup platoon, which was just behind Bella, and yet another which was to establish Camp 1, 2, 3, the logistic bases along the spine of the glacier. And then subsequent camps were to be established by Ladakh Scouts, 4, 5, 6, and then they were to occupy Siala. So that was the broad plan, and everything was going as per it. But around 11:30, the weather suddenly turned bad, extremely bad, unbelievably bad. We never ever thought. I thought that I had seen the glacier in 82. I had walked on it and stayed there for 90 days in 83. I never for a moment thought that in 84, within just about a few hours of a landing over there, the weather would turn so bad that the visibility, turned to virtual zero. Solid. The winds were blowing at over 100 kilometers an hour. We had not even unpacked ourselves. The helicopters were to do the second sortie to the occupation of Siala. So that got postponed. And then there were 5 days of radio silence. So obviously, we could communicate with one another. So I think there was a pressure down below also that, look, we ought to have attempted to occupy the glacier on the 13th of April because invariably the weather would turn bad and things of those kind. But, well, the commander said, no, don't worry. These boys are well trained and you don't have to worry. They'll perform and they'll live up to our expectations. Sure enough, and it was around the third day. These first 2-3 days, about 72 hours, were miserable. Most of them, I would say, suffered from frostbite, chilblains, and all those kinds of things, and were looking at me because I was one of them who had been there with them in 83. And some among them also were with me in 83. They told me, "Saab, kya ho gaya?" I said, "Koi baat nahi hai. It was ye bhi sabhe nikal jayega. Koi aise chinta ki baat nahi hai." So we carried on, and then every day since we were dropped short of Bellafondla, not on top of Bellafondla, short of Bellafondla, about approximately maybe about 2 odd kilometers short of Bellafondla. So every day we were attempting to get to Bellafondla. Oh, I would go almost neck deep into the snow. Extremely difficult. Couldn't do anything. So the third day, while I was attempting to do that, I got a call from my boys, Wapas, come back. I said, you gone back? I said, क्या हो गया? I said, जैसे साहब रमेश का मुझे लगता है देहांत हो गया है. I said, Ramesh, कैसे हो गया? Because Ramesh was the boy who was with me in 83 and a real backbone of the entire thing. I went to see him in the tent, and there we had tents which I could just take about between 2 and max 3 to 4 men squeezed inside. They are small pop tents. I saw him, he had froth in his mouth, and Ramesh was no more. So now that put us into a bit of this thing, because it was only the third day and 5 days of radio silence. Now, how do we inform that one amongst us is no more? So I had a little discussion with Major Sandhu, and I told him, I said, sir, irrespective of whatever may be the instructions, if we keep Ramesh with us, we can't keep him outside the tent. We have to keep him inside. If we keep him inside, then another 3 boys are going to be sleeping with him. So it's a little embarrassing situation. I think we must inform them, and they'll do. Now, the radio operator was not there because the radio operator had been evacuated within an hour of arrival. So I opened the radio set. It had to be set, and then I conveyed this thing that Ramesh is no more. That's it, nothing else. And sure enough, little later, the helicopter came and took Ramesh down below. And now we were 28 of us. Now, we were now attempting to get to Bellafondla. Just after this incident, when we were going to Bellafondla and I was about to reach Bellafondla, what is it that I see? I see a Pakistani helicopter straight coming from the Ali Brangza side, that is from their Skazu side, being flown on because the radio set opened up. Now, since the radio set opened up, obviously they found out there is some activity taking very close and they were fearing that this was sincerely hoping that the Indians are not on top of the Siachen glacier. And sure enough, we were very much there. And when the helicopter of theirs came right on top, I saw the pilot. The pilot saw me because obviously now I was at such a great height. Their helicopters couldn't be flying much higher either. So we saw one another. We took a U-turn and went. And therefore, we had now occupied Belafonla. And since the Belafonla was being occupied, the weather had just about turned. By the time the Pakistanis realized it, Siala had also got occupied. So Belafonla, Siala, both routes of ingress to Siachen Glacier from the Soltoro ridgeline had been occupied. And therefore, Pakistan had been defeated at the very start because they thought they would preempt us. Now, this part, as I mentioned it earlier also, Musharraf wrote in his book, In the Line of Fire, that India preempted in occupation of Siachen Glacier. What does that show? Pakis were all set that had it not been for us occupying it on the 13th of April 1984, they would have done so because in any case, 13th we moved in, weather bad, 14th weather bad, 15th weather bad, 16th weather bad, and 17th was all this was happening. They would have also realized it, and after that the weather continuously remained bad. And as per their planning, they were to occupy the glacier on the 30th. Now, from the Pakistani side, it is very easy to climb. It takes just about a day for them to climb up on the Soltoro ridgeline. And once they climb up to the Soltoro ridgeline and then roll down towards the Siachen Glacier. So it was almost impossible since they had already occupied everything. And then there was another pass called the Gyongla. So that had been occupied. So Gyongla occupied, Belafonla occupied, Siala occupied. And they remember, they keep, and it's under our occupation since 1984. It's 2025. It still remains under our occupation and it will continue to remain under our occupation without anything. And now once we are occupied it, then the first, I think the exchange of fire took place around the 23rd of April. Now, 23rd of April, the first exchange of fire took place between between us and the Pakistanis at Belafonla. And then the first attack, which they actually launched to repulse, was on the 23rd of June, 1984. So that was the first attack that they launched with proper this thing, firing the mortars, artillery, all of it, whatever they could use, they tried to use. In that exchange of fire, I lost by one boy by the name of Chanchal Singh. Very interesting it was that Chanchal saved us. In fact, Chanchal saved us on that particular day. It was the 23rd of June. And since I had orders given to my people on Belafonla that every 1 hour, irrespective, now that was from day one of my landing over there because of my past experience, I said every 1 hour, whoever is on duty over there will report to me saying that all is well or is not well or somebody has fallen sick or something has gone wrong or everything is fine. I said, every 1 hour you will report and you must get an answer back from me to either in terms of yes, Ram Ram, Jai Hind, whatever it be. So perfectly fine, okay, theek hai, whatever. I said, should you not find any answer coming from me, please come to me and shake me up to see whether I am dead or alive. Because that's the way to find out I am also okay, you are also okay, everything is okay. So that was the this thing. So on 23rd June, in the morning at about 3:30 or 4-ish, I think around 4, my patrol commander was on this thing. He said, "Sab, Dushman." I said, "Dushman? From where on earth can Dushman come over here at 4 in the morning here?" He said, "Nahi sab, Dushman, Chanchal ne kuch dekha hai, harkat ho raha hai." Now we are top of Belafonla. So all this harkat or movement could be spotted on the glacier because glaciers absolute white. Men would be dots seen in the early hours of the morning, first light, and little before first light, they were all gathering to be able to attack. Now, to climb Belafonla is not easy because when you are at height of about 15,000, 16,000 feet and you have load on top of you, your head is down and you're just about putting one and you're just about breathing. So your breathing is just about synchronizing with your stepping. So it's very, very difficult to climb up. So Chanchal had informed. And sure enough, I told them, I said, now get into your morchas, because what morchas we dug up inside that, made some communication trenches all along. And then we got into it. And then, of course, we sorted them out. A lot of their casualties occurred on the 23rd of June. But we lost Chanchal. Now, a very interesting thing which Chanchal happened was, Chanchal about maybe a fortnight before, it was very bad, absolutely bad weather. Couldn't see anything. And we were all in our pup tents and went
Mhm.
round to see whether our boys were there in their respective sentry place. And I saw nobody down there. I said, where on earth have these boys disappeared? So the boy who was with me, I said, "Ye kahan hai?
Mhm.
Sare ke sare nazar nahi aa rahe." Obviously, the visibility was poor, but there was a small mound which had been next to me. And I kicked it hard out of frustration. And what do I find? I find Chanchal. Chanchal was sitting as a sentry and had been covered with snow from all over, and that warmth kept him going. And I said, Chanchal, what are you doing over here? He said, साहब मैं बैठा था और देख रहा था और अचानक मेरे को नींद आ गई. I said, look at it. Heavy snowfall. Ah,
Mhm.
such a heavy snowfall. And here this boy has got wrapped up in his poncho and he had gone to sleep sitting over there. I said, Chanchal, ऐसे नहीं करना है. जब भी, whenever you have such a thing happening or you feel, you
Mhm.
have your buddies always with you. Do tell him that you're, feeling sleepy or whatever that be so. But keep moving, I said. If you
Mhm.
sit down at one place, this is also another thing that we have to be very careful, because under these circumstances, the body gets that warmth comes. The poncho gives you another warmth. It is snowing heavily. You're totally covered. You're able to breathe, but then that warmth of the body makes you feel very comfortable. And imagine that little, I would say, ticking off Chanchal on a fortnight before helped us on the 23rd of June. It was that boy who saved us by spotting the enemy, by being alert, being absolutely alert in the early hours of the morning.
Mhm.
He was decorated with Shaurya Chakra subsequently. But then that battle for Bellafondla was the first battle for Bellafondla. That was on the 23rd of June, 1984. We defeated the Pakis, and after that, they've been continuously attacking. 87, same time, 23rd of June, 1987, the attack that took place on top of, we recaptured their Kaid post and we renamed it the Bana post. The first Paramveer Chakra was won by Bana Singh. And you now realize the importance of that particular area where Pakis and all these subsequent attacks were led by Musharraf. Either it was
Mhm.
Musharraf or his men leading, attack on attack to dislodge us. No question, doesn't arise. In mountains, who occupies heights? It's impossible. And
Mhm.
the seeds of Kargil was sown
Mhm.
then. Musharraf was a brigadier, SSG commander, unable to dislodge us. He thought he would do the same to us in Kargil,
Mhm.
occupy heights, and obviously we would not be able to reoccupy them, and then he would bargain. But of course, I would say that to some extent he did succeed, but then to reoccupy our heights that the Pakis had occupied in Kargil, we had to have a huge sacrifice. Over 500 of our men lost their lives reoccupying those heights. Even the Pakis, we have lost much more defending those heights, which they could not, and lost all of them. But then that's a different story. The question is, once you occupy heights in the mountains, it's extremely difficult to
Mhm.
dislodge. And if anybody attempts to dislodge, the losses are tremendous. And therefore, since 84, we continue to occupy. And you hear Pakistanis say a lot of times, Hum Siachen Glacier par hai. They're nowhere near Siachen Glacier.
Mhm.
Nowhere near Siachen Glacier. They're miles away from the Siachen Glacier. But then, the things how it is, and that is how it remains. Now, there was you were wanting to know as to what was the strategic importance. What is it
Because
that
I wanted this to know, sir. Before that, sir, I'll come back to the strategic significance, sir. That's very important. There's one very personal feeling, sir. When did you come down? Came down. I mean, came down from Bilafonla, back down to the earth, I would say. So, what was the feeling like, sir? That the feeling of achievement. What was it like, sir?
one thing, Bank, I must tell you, we were young and full of that joy, jazba, junoon, whatever you might call, and we were trained for it, and all of us had been there in '83, and we knew that we would be there for 90 days, and obviously from the 13th of April till about 90 days and beyond, till someone came and relieved us over there. And well, I was lucky enough to have survived all of those 90 days, because most of my men had got turned over, because the initial setback or that bad weather was terrible.
Hmm.
And so much so that subsequent bad weather also, a lot of these casualties took place. Of course, no, not fatal, but and all that this thing which continued for a very long time. of which we found that until and unless first and foremost, I would say, when you have completed your tenure and when you have your troops coming and relieving you, you also feel relieved that yes, the task that was given to you had been done, had been completed, and one feels satisfied with his men around, and that we are all deducted from there. But just as a matter of this thing, now before you were deducted from there, and you know, it so happened that Mrs. Gandhi, since she was the prime minister at that point of time, she also wanted to fly over to be shown as to what exactly was happening. Because 84 was a very crucial year, a lot of things happening everywhere. So, and even though the go ahead was given, probably there was a rider that it confine it and don't let it, go beyond that Siachen. So she wanted to see, and she found that she could actually see nothing. It was pure white. And when she was flown, she said, "Where are the troops? I can't see nothing, nobody. And how can anybody survive over here?" And in a corner, she saw a national flag fluttering. She said, "Is that our national flag there?" She was told, "Yes, that's the national flag of ours." Who else is there? Now, Colonel Pushkar Chand, who was my task force commander, took my name and said, the Kulkarni, the young captain who's sitting over there. "Oh, my God, give him a break." And sure enough, man, you won't believe. After about some time, I was told, "Please come down. You've done your tenure, and now you're being sick." Thing. And I went and fortnight European tour as part of to be able to user rep for the subsequent import of the equipment, to be able to see and be able to guide as to what all changes need to take place. And of course, kind courtesy the Prime Minister at that point of time, I did get to see France, I got to see Germany, I got to see Switzerland and Austria, Italy. And as a young captain, it was a big thing to be able to go in 1984 and visit these countries and have a good time for a fortnight. And I think that's how faith is, and that's how luck is. But good feeling that we could do our task. All of us could do what we were told to do. And that is all that I thought. Jo kaam diya, wo kaam kiya. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. Yeah.
Sir, coming to the strategic significance, there was a time when there was a lot of talk about demilitarization of Siachen. हम लोग इतना पैसा क्यों खर्च कर रहे हैं सियाचिन पे? What is the purpose being served? In 2006, around 2006, the government was on the verge of basically demilitarizing, and the word used was, "We'll make it a mountain of peace." Sir, as an officer who's been there, who's seen the strategic significance, who understands, I would like you to take us through the strategic significance and then also talk about what do you feel when you hear talks of demilitarization?
See, first and foremost, Pakistan can't be trusted. That's the first thing. That's the bottom line. And since there is no trust with our neighbor because of this kind of activities that our neighbor has been indulging in, terrorism, using terrorism as an instrument of state policy, and not ever that they hate India, the base of Pakistan army is. So in that context, that demilitarization or occupying our own legitimate places, you can't trust Pakistan. And had we vacated Siachen, they would have come and occupied it. And then it would have been extremely difficult to dislodge. As I said, Kargil, we know what happened, occupying a height and a victory that came to us at a great loss of our men. So in keeping that in mind, that is the first thing. Second, of course, now when you look at it today, it's a huge, big training ground. Training ground because you find that all our men have virtually gone through Siachen Glacier. And everybody feels proud and contented, happy that they could survive and that they know what it means to be able to fight at 20,000 and beyond, and even to survive, exist, to see how weapons fire, don't fire, what all defects take place, how to preserve yourself, how to ensure that nothing goes wrong. That came handy when what happened at Galwan in eastern Ladakh. So you find that, you're always ready. And why the Chinese were on the back foot is because all of our troops they know how to fight now in high altitude. To be able to, remain self-motivated, know what it means, as I keep saying, not to be a gamma in the land of Lama, how to breathe, how to synchronize your breathing with walking, how to know that you're now suffering from insomnia, or how to know that, well, chilblain or frostbite is going to be hitting you, what is snow blindness, each of it, because you all go through everything. So there is so much of self-preservation and ensuring that you want to remain fit, you can't remain. And therefore, you can take on anybody, because after all, yes, what matters, equipment matters, but what really matters is the man on ground, the boots on ground. And the boots on ground are only possible if the men are trained, men are motivated, and men are determined to be able to withstand that kind of minus 70 degrees, wind blowing at over 100 kilometers an hour, you getting stuck in the crevices, getting into avalanches, coming out of the avalanches, you're seeing death sometime or the other during a tenure. So all of it. So this is something which it is. Now, everybody, of course, 2003 was the ceasefire. There's been no firing on top of Siachen since then. Both the countries are ensuring that there's a ceasefire on Siachen is concerned. But the Pakistanis have not been able to reconcile to what we call the AGPL. Now, until and unless we know that all along, these are the points along which both the sides have to accept. That's not possible, because Pakistanis don't, as I said, lack of trust, and they do not, we cannot sort of trust them for whatever wrong. Secondly, they're already ceded Shaksgam Valley in 1963 to China. So Shaksgam is just adjoining. You stand on top of Indra Col, you can see Shaksgam down below only. You can see the valley right in front, under your nose. So they would have had a free run, totally. And now from Teremshire Glacier, which is there, you can actually get on to the Karakoram Pass also if you walked across to that side. So there's a lot that could have happened. But of course, a lot of time people said, well, there wasn't any strategic importance. There were no men, and that it could have been left as it is. Nothing could have happened. Yes, it could have been left, provided the enemy does not come and occupy it. Because if they are occupied, then it's very difficult to dislodge. And then you know what happens in Aksai, his fate accompanies it. If you're not there, somebody else comes and occupies, and then you lose that area. So it is in that context that it is your area, and we must occupy it and not let anyone, by means of a cartographic aggression or by means of a presence over there, just come and occupy, because Pakistanis were sponsoring foreign expeditions and trying to tell the world that, yes, this area belongs to them. How else would anybody apply for climbing those beautiful mountainous paradise peaks to Pakistan? Why wouldn't they want to come to India? Because they thought it was Pakistan which was doing it. And at that point of time, there were great powers which were sort of backing up Pakistan. So I think in this context, it's very essential that we continue to occupy. And that the cost is concerned, yes, it costs about 5 crores a day virtually to sustain troops on the glacier. But that's peanuts, absolute peanuts. We are a great economy now. We're doing extremely well. We're the world's 5th largest economy. In terms of PPP, we are probably the 3rd largest economy already. And what is 5 crores a day? Nothing, absolutely. It's a question of national interest and national pride and training of our boys and making them feel good and superior to your enemy. Why not? I think it's very little. And we must not hesitate, and we must continue to occupy, because, as I said, we do not trust Pakistan one bit. Yeah.
So no price is high enough to maintain national security. And perhaps I feel that perhaps this ambiguous strategic thinking is because of the lack of strategic culture in the country, sir. Most of the people don't understand, they don't know. And it is very important that people like you speak up, sir, tell people stories which are, so full of valor that it gives me goosebumps while listening to it. Thank you so much, sir, for this episode. I cannot thank you enough.
Thank you, man. Thank you very much indeed.
So much, sir.
Grateful, and I'm so glad, and always a pleasure interacting with you.
And on
and
behalf of
Jai Hind.
Sir, on behalf of the entire country, sir, I must thank the Indian Army for doing it what it does. Thank you and Jai Hind, sir.
No, absolutely. The Indian Army is absolutely incredible. We just cannot get the kind of troops that we have. Super. I'm blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind, sir.